The ceiling might look simple, but every detail matters. A bad install here, you're gonna see it forever. So today we're gonna break down on how we're installing this wood ceiling at 45 white oak to make sure the finish is flawless. And this video is brought to you by Madera. So this right here is actually our linear slot diffuser for the HVAC. And that, if you remember, was a piece of sheet metal that was fabricated by our HVAC team, and over it we've installed our white oak ceiling. That slot is actually about 36 inches by 1 inch. That is the exact measurement it needs to be for the correct amount of airflow coming out. We wanted it to be really minimal, something that wasn't going to be an applied trim or even a grill on top of it, which is why we ended up with that slot. The ductwork itself gets painted black prior to us installing the wood, but the wood is permanent. So there is no removing that and accessing that ductwork. So it's really important from a ductwork perspective to have access at the other end of that should you ever need to clean it out. But frankly, it gives a really nice, simple, minimalistic look. Very similar to our recessed lighting. So all of our recessed lighting is an element fixture from Visual Comfort, and you can see up there, there's a stainless steel trim ring. So that's completely flangeless. It's designed to be recessed in the wood, and the team actually went back and forth on what size hole that required. I think the specs actually called for a slightly larger hole, which we didn't really like the reveal, so they actually custom made a router jig to make that circle as tight as possible. The nice thing about those lights is, you see here on the angled ceiling that if they're not adjustable, they're going to be hitting the wall. All of those lights are adjustable, so you'll actually have the correct downlight coming through this hallway. And again, you can see the linear slot diffusers follow all the way down on this ceiling. There's a lot of things that we have to consider when we're installing a ceiling like this. You notice that they're doing all of the slanted ceilings first. They wanted to make sure that they got their datum point aligned all the way around. And that datum point is referenced off of all of our windows. So you can see right here, if you look up, you'll see a piece of scrap wood nailed onto what is a miter. That scrap will come off, and there's actually a return piece that goes towards the window and then dies turning up, and that creates our shade pocket here. You can also see, really quickly is how our plaster actually returns back to our window, and it's going to give it this complete panoramic look. Panoramic meaning that there's no exposed white oak in the finished condition, it's just glass, with the exception of where your operable windows are. On this angle here, we have these mitered corners, and one of the things that we discussed and we ended up doing from the install is we actually ran these boards long into the corner and then mitered this one on top of it, kind of like a cope joint when you would do crown molding. Rather than doing an inside miter, could open up over time. This gives it the opportunity for that material to run past and then fit tight here. Now, we did glue it, but if there was any seasonal movement, which there probably will be, when it moves, it's gonna move on this side, and when you're coming down that hallway, you're not gonna notice it. Speaking of which, when they're laying out these long boards, some of these are 16 feet long, but every once in a while you'll get some of these shorter ones. They were really thoughtful in terms of where all of the seams would end up. Also thinking about when you're in the bed here, where those seams are and what you're looking at. The benefit of using a product like this is that you do get ultra long lengths, and it's really important to think about where those seams are so you're not, creating additional seams and kind of showcasing the fact that these are shorter pieces when they're not. This really all starts with good framing and really good prep work. Looking above me, you'll see that they're starting to install the flat section. There is an OSB ceiling, which was originally our prep for our ceiling. And the material is gonna be adhered right to that OSB. I'm gonna take my pointing stick here and explain what we got going on. So this ceiling, it runs up, and as we were laying this out, we realized that our face of plaster was gonna end up right about on the inside of that piece of material. And what we want is that corner bead to land exactly where this ceiling and this ceiling transition and tie into one another. With that OSB all the way up there, we were ending up with our ceiling line essentially transitioning from slope to flat inboard of that corner bead. And that's not what we wanted. A detail that could have easily been overlooked. And frankly, looking back at what really dictated that ceiling height, it's an easy thing to miss. They recognize that, and they're actually patting that entire ceiling down, making sure that that ties with our corner bead. Now, on top of that, we have all of these element lights that have to be dropped down. And what you can't see is above this board, we actually have 2 ERV supplies, and they're actually gonna be cut out to come right between this board and the next. All of this lighting is specifically laid out to land either dead center of a seam or dead center of a board, depending on where that lays out. This ceiling actually runs essentially front to back of the home, and that is also something that was really considered in the design. So when you're laying in bed, you're not looking at all of the striping heading in this direction, and you're getting these really long pieces. That material up there is about 2. You can see the seam here, but you're getting really long pieces and making sure that you're not getting this really busy looking ceiling. And that's gonna actually tie to our flooring install. One of the things with this material, it is also made by Madera, and it's really thin in terms of the overall thickness of the material. So we're about just over a 1/2 inch thick. You actually have this solid pine center layer, very similar to if you were to see Baltic birch, but this is just a solid pine that is glued up and laminated. You have essentially an oak veneer backing, which balances the panel. This is a lower grade, and this is your finished grade here. You can see they're testing out, I believe, a hole for our ERV. But that wear layer is really, really thin. You can see right here, it's just over a 16th inch thick. Which would be really, really thin if it was for floors. Because over time, if you're walking on this, it's gonna require refinishing. And you don't wanna be refinishing something that's only a 16th of an inch thick, because it's gonna be really difficult to scuff, sand, or even refinish. And you're certainly not gonna get more than maybe 1 over time. But being that it's a ceiling and you're never gonna be walking on it, probably, right? It's very unlikely that you're gonna ever have to sand that ceiling and or refinish it, so we can reduce that thickness. Now the benefit of doing that is you actually are more cost effective with material, and you're getting a higher yield out of a log, because you're able to go a lot further with your veneer because you're slicing it so thin. But you know, the benefit of it, and going back to our seamless wood design with Madera, is that this material is coming from the same exact tree as the flooring will be, which makes a huge difference when we're thinking about, you know, one material, one consistent material all the way throughout, embodying that seamless wood design that Madera is all about. Now, lastly, I want to talk about why are we doing the white oak on the ceiling, and why are these ceilings so tall? The truth is, in this jurisdiction, they actually count our attic space as livable square footage. And when you're dealing with FAR requirements, floor area ratio requirements, which essentially dictates how big of a house you can build on said size lot, that square footage matters. So when they were counting that attic space, the team of Possible said, why don't we push the ceilings up and shrink that attic space down so they're not utilizing it against that calculation, which is what we ended up with here. And the original thought was that we were going to do this out of plaster, and it really started to feel boring and frankly lifeless. And now we have this beautiful white oak ceiling, white oak floor, and then our walls are only these columns or moments. This is actually a good example. You only have from corner to corner as a vertical section, square, top and bottom. You have a reveal at the ceiling and a reveal at the floor, and it's just this kind of column moment. There's no plaster underneath the window, and there's no plaster above the window. Despite what you see kind of back there, that is our window shade pocket. But it is designed to have these kind of column moments all the way throughout, and not have these transitioning lines of going from floor to ceiling or even underneath the windows. This becomes actually a fabric panel, which continues to help soften the look of this home. And then we have a nice white oak sill on the window. So as we wrap up bedroom 1 here, we'll have this completely done before we start flooring. And then at the last moment, we'll actually go into plaster. But bedroom 2 is already under construction in terms of the ceiling. They're installing that now, and they're setting and they're prepping for bedroom 3. But by starting with this 1 bedroom and working through all those details and those moments, like the HVAC, the lighting, the control points of how things interact with one another, it gives us the opportunity to really set the expectation, you know, from design intent to actual execution. If you guys are interested in building a project like this, fill out the form below. And if you're a builder that wants to learn more, make sure you sign up for the Modern Craftsman newsletter. Link is in the description.